Per usual, everything on this channel is for educational purposes only, is not intended as financial advice. Sunday, that means it's Setup Sunday. Let's take a look at some charts. Lots of chatter about Binance, some concern about the disconnections of prices on Binance US. Anytime you see something like that going on, good idea to just take your coins and mosey on anywhere else, any other exchange or a hardware wallet. I would get out of BSC as well. Don't think they're insolvent, but you just don't want funds trapped anywhere. That's just my 2 cents. And if you want to watch it all unfold throughout the week, should there be an announcement, I have no knowledge of anything, but should something happen, I would watch the BNB price. TA-wise, could break down, is potentially set up for that. Certainly not a bullish fundamental outlook on what's going on at Binance right now. On to Bitcoin, on vacation. Much like most people, we had some excitement on the Ripple ruling, which to my non-lawyerly brain concluded that transactions of sales of Ripple to institutions in the United States were deemed securities, unregistered, whereas dumping them blindly on exchanges, totally fine. So if I'm a project now, what I'll be doing, just as a heads up, is dumping blindly on the public in perpetuity. I'm sure this ruling will get appealed, because if it doesn't, it's going to be complete mayhem. So definitely keep that in mind. But price-wise, TA-wise, not much going on. Maybe this is a bullish rectangle. Maybe people are out to lunch, whatever. Bit of a fake-out breakout here. As long as we hold above 30, this range remains intact on lower time frames. Ultimately, I'm not worried about it long-term until we're sub 25. If we start to break 30, we break 25, then things get a little bit more dicey. But as we sit here, not a big deal. We're kind of setting up for any sort of news where something could tip the wagon here, be that bearish news. Clearly I guess you call it bullish news on the asteroid nearly hitting the entire ecosystem and veering slightly off course at the last second. I don't know. So if you see some bearish news this week, I wouldn't doubt that 30K breaks down. And mainly I'm just referring to Binance. If there's some who knows what about Binance going on. On the cloud, we also look okay. From a pure TA perspective, a Kijun bounce would be, I was going to say TKC clamp. There is a TKC clamp here, but the Kijun bounce would be 28. This is the volume profile at price. And there's been a ton of volume here at this level at 30 from all the times prior that we've been at 30. You can see it building up here, just a ton of volume, buyers and sellers, both sides of the coin there, no pun intended. Pivot to pivot trade still intact as far as 37, 38, whatever. Cloud trend still intact. And you've got your pivot down here at 26 as well. So if we're above, if we're above the 200 week, if we're above the 200 day, if we're above the pivot, if we're above the cloud, I'm not concerned at all. For continuation, it can continue to take its sweet old time here. Even the daily B-bands, and if you've never seen B-bands before, these are hard to read, but if you have, you'll likely know what I'm about to point out. But B-bands look at 2 standard deviations above and below a 20-day moving average. The last time we were this tight on the B-bands in January, how this works is B-bands will contract as volatility drops. They will expand as volatility expands. If we are contracting volatility as the squeeze happens and we are above the 20-day, this is a very clear bullish bias here. We also had a pattern. In this case, it's mid, okay? It's in between everything. There's not really much going on. It's a 50-50. It's waiting for a catalyst, right? It's waiting for something. That'd be my official TA read. Now, on the weekly, you could say a whole bunch of things. You could say, is this a rising 3 methods, which is a candlestick pattern? Specifically, I'm talking about these 3 candlesticks here. Now, the candlestick purists will say, Josh, of course not. You don't see 3 red candles here. I don't, but at the same time, you do see declining closing prices. There's a potential 3 drives here. Is this the 3rd drive? Is this the 2nd drive? Right here's 1, 2, 3. That's more of a kind of an Elliott wave type thing. I'm certainly more focused on the cloud potential here. This is our first opportunity to actually as we're consolidating up here to actually push through the weekly cloud for the first time since we broke below it in April 2022. There's also a weekly B-band expansion. I'll look at that in a second. You do have a bullish TK cross preceding the bullish edge to edge. So that's what you want to see. Just like up here, this isn't a great example, but you did have a bearish TK cross first, and then you had total annihilation meltdown, right? So the TK cross basically gives you the blessing for hitting the thrusters through the cloud there. You could also say, is this just a generic bull flag? Is this some sort of rising something, ascending triangle? I don't think so. I think it's a bit too flat for all that, but lots of stuff here. Nothing super bearish, maybe except the bearish 3 drives. Now, I would argue that the better trade would be to take a long from 27 to 42. Your stop loss based on this edge-to-edge setup is always either the Kijun or the cloud. You can use them both together, but you can see how far away we are from the Kijun here, how far we are from the cloud, even if we were to enter. I mean, this thing ideally, right, just takes its time, waits for everybody to come back from vacation, and it does its thing in Q4, okay? So there's certainly no rush here. I know people see this and get excited, but keep in mind, this thing can just grind your face off. Is it a cup and handle? People would say no, because we didn't have a bullish trend first. Cup and handle is only continuation. That's what they tell you, right? We do have declining volume after the FTX meltdown. This is Coinbase only now volume. So we haven't had an on-volume breakout really at all. We've had some exciting days, but we haven't had massive volume come back quite yet on Coinbase. These are the weekly B-bands. You can see the clear difference, right? This is October 2020 into 2021. This is what is referred to as walking up the bands, just pushing expansion, expansion, expansion. We're above the 20-week the entire time. Here, we're just bouncing over and over again. Momentum, obviously not as strong as before, but still, it doesn't look half bad. And let's say we continue to tighten for another couple weeks, and we tighten above the 20-week still, right? As long as we're above the 20-week, that's another great litmus test. I mean, just look at it. It does get noisy, tops and bottoms, but this was bullish. This was bullish. This was bearish, right? Very rarely you get these like fake outs here, right? So if we continue to consolidate and it becomes even more clear that we're headed higher based on this weekly B-band squeeze, I'm totally fine with that too. I wouldn't try to force anything here. So I'd keep that in mind with, sizing, leverage, eating funding, that sort of thing. This is CME, and there is a bit of a gap at 34.4, 35.1, something to look for on any moves higher. Just know that gaps like to be filled. I'm not going to explain it, but gaps tend to be filled more often than not. There's also a pretty big gap down here at 18 to 20, whatever that is. So all in all, Bitcoin looks like it could break up this week, could break down this week. It's 50-50. There's not too much bearish evidence overall. I certainly lean heavily bullish, staying long, even if, something dumb in the headlines comes out, right? I can just only imagine, right? TOJ goes after Binance, whatever it is. That's the rumor. You get something like that, market easily would dump this because we've sat here for 30 days and done nothing. It would love to crush a bunch of people here. Looking at dominance, we did have a strong reverse on dominance on the scam coin news that programmatic selling is totally fine. I'm not salty. It's just a dumb ruling. It's what it is. But as far as dominance is concerned, I still think this looks fine, especially if things are blowing up in Binance land. It's going to hurt everything, but it's going to hurt alts more, most likely. It's certainly going to hurt Binance more, BNB more, right? If we look at kind of a twisted version of alts market cap, potentially inverted head and shoulders here. For me, this is much of an ignore until it gets above, I think 300 billion is what this is. There are a few charts that are actionable that I talked about on Wednesday, more on like the lending and borrowing Dino DeFi category. Comp, Aave, Curve, those have pretty decent case for inverted head and shoulders. So you may see some early movers there, but as a group, I think it's a bit early still as far as alts are concerned. ETH, man, this thing has done less than nothing. Continues to just grind out massive rejection at 2K. Continues to reject at that pivot, reject at any cloud breakout here. Now, there will be a day when the meth heads win. That day may not be until Q4. That day may be sometime this week. I don't know. That's why I have a little bit of ETH in the kitty here, just waiting for this breakout, because I really don't want to wait until we're at 2100 or something to start adding or opening along. So I think personally, you're safe really realistically until 1500, so you have to give yourself room for that. I certainly could care less about short term, highly convicted that this thing will break up before breaking down. Massive ascending triangle. Volume slowly coming back here, and volume profile is supportive, let's say, and it measures to around 2500 plus, but realistically, pivot to pivot is in the cards here. And it's been over a year, so it's clearly not in a rush to do anything here. When this breaks out, all the meth heads are going to say staking is great. Look at all the stuff that's staking. This is amazing. So be prepared for that. But it looks good. I'm not going to deny it. That's why I have some right now. ETH on lower time frames, I don't really think you could argue inverted head and shoulders, but maybe if you really wanted to, you could. There was a nice low time frame inverted head and shoulders that played out here. But on lower time frames, anything below 1820, and I would get nervous. Even with the Ripple ruling, ETH couldn't hold above 2K, which is interesting. ETH BTC continues to look bearish to me. The most bullish case here is a falling wedge. The most bearish case is we break 05, we break the yearly pivot there, and we return to somewhere in the 2019 to 2021 period. I don't think we get that far. I think realistically 05 whatever is the target here. And I'm not broadly bullish on ETH BTC until we're above the cloud here. The thing is, if you can catch this trade on leverage as ETH BTC is chopping around, right? I mean, that's the dream. So we'll see if that actually happens. But this is definitely long-term still bearish for me. A few things on the legacy side. I'll save this for Monday, but I just wanted to highlight the potential for a breakdown here on S&P. You've got somewhat of a bear div, kind of, sort of. Another rising wedge, right? We're at the macro inverted head and shoulders target. Technically, by the way, this is a multi-shouldered head and shoulders. I don't know if I've ever said that out loud in reference to this pattern, but continued to make higher lows, finally went for it. All of a sudden, everybody's bullish, right? Up here, everybody's perfectly positioned, just as they were perfectly positioned for bearish continuation down here. The problem with letting go here, or shorting here, anything that looks like this, is everyone's going to be looking at all-time highs. That's all they're going to be looking at. So I'd certainly say there's a soft assumption that the S&P attempts something higher, right? And that's certainly in line with the target, but from a risk-reward perspective, it's, made its move. And if I was turbo long up here, I'd start to get nervous. A few crypto equities or crypto-related equities, MSTR, right? This thing's broken out of its, whatever this is, Adam and Eve, ascending triangle, I don't know. And it's kind of reached close to its target. Again, from just a purely risk-reward perspective, we're starting to hit some levels. Coin, the same thing, super fast on how this moved, right, on news. But here's your cloud breakout. Here's your, no doubt about it, slam dunk, inverted head and shoulders breakout. And depending on how you want to measure this, it's already reached kind of its early first target as far as the pivot is concerned. What I'd like to see from coin this week is some indication that this is going to consolidate here, assuming it doesn't go higher, which I don't think it will, but I'd like to see some sort of maybe a falling wedge, maybe a just generic bull flag. Maybe this will eventually be a tiny head and shoulders up here that where it hits its target at 121. I don't know. It's way too early to tell, but I certainly don't think this is going to immediately retrace to 87. I still like longs, below 87 from like 80 to 87, but I'm still holding the coin that I picked up before the breakout here. Tons of volume came out on this. So another thing to watch for is any higher highs on less volume, much like, the S&P bear divs, right? And that's what you're looking for when we're up here on a big move like that. I don't know the short float lately. It might still be pretty high. So that's something else to watch from a, multi-week perspective. GBTC also hit its target technically, right? Literally based on technicals, just fib extensions almost to the penny here. measuring this high to this low, fib extension at 2187. Would love to see this thing continue to consolidate. Again, you get a bear div up here, continuous highs on less momentum. So a down week across the board wouldn't be out of the question. ETH as well, massive breakout, exactly where you'd expect it, right? At the neckline, at the cloud level. This tells me patterns are real, okay? Santa Claus is real, folks. This tells me these settings are real, and maybe it's all self-fulfilling prophecy. I don't care. We also have multi-month high in volume. So again, I'd like to see this consolidate, but it does look good for eventual higher highs. Really the thing you're waiting for with GBTC and ETH, either these continue to melt up with the assumption that the Grayscale ETF is approved and the assumption that that's good news for Grayscale because they can eventually convert, right? This isn't about reality. This is about the belief that a conversion can happen because the first one already is approved, right? I'm talking like we're playing 25D chess here, right? I think that's where the market's at with this discount. The same thing with ETH, right? I think there's a extremely generous assumption that if a BTC ETF is approved, eventually an ETH ETF will be approved. Eventually there will be some sort of conversion here. So I think you've got people with eyeballs on both of these Grayscale products, and you may see continued discount reduction here. And this may even be playing a role in the spot side of things, because maybe the real money is saying, look, there's a 40% discount here. Why would I buy spot ETH when I could buy this product and just pick up that discount, right? That's also a problem. You know, if somebody's in some sort of carry trade where they're short spot, long GBTC to capture that premium or discount, whatever it is. So the sooner these products go away or this gets fixed, the better, because then that question is gone. Now with an ETF from BlackRock, right? Who cares what this discount is? But we're not quite there yet. All right, that's all for this one. Like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and let me know what you're looking at this week. And happy trading.